The desperate search. The emergency klaxons screamed through Research Station Omega-7 as the massive Krillian dreadnought materialized in the void outside. Dr. Maya Chen pressed her palm against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching the ship's crimson hull pulse with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of barely controlled rage. She had studied Krillian physiology for 15 years, but she had never seen a war vessel this close to human space. All hands to diplomatic positions. Commander Jake Morrison's voice crackled through the station's communication system. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Maya rushed toward the main docking bay, her research tablet clutched against her chest. As the station's lead xenobiologist, she would be needed for the formal greeting protocols. But something felt wrong about this visit. The Krillian Empire had maintained peaceful relations with humanity for 3 decades, ever since the Treaty of Epsilon Prime. Why would their flagship arrive unannounced with weapons charged? The docking bay doors hissed open, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees as the alien atmosphere mixed with the station's recycled air. Empress Thyralia emerged first, her 9-foot frame casting long shadows across the metal deck. Her crimson scales rippled with emotional discharge, and her forearms moved in the ritual patterns of barely contained fury. Behind her, 6 Krillian warriors in full battle armor formed a protective formation. Captain Torres, the station's diplomatic liaison, stepped forward with practiced calm. His 20 years of interspecies negotiations had taught him to read the subtle signs of alien emotional states. The Empress's crest was fully extended. Her secondary eyes were dilated, and her tail lashed behind her with the rhythm of a war drum. This was not a social visit. "Your Imperial Majesty," Torres began, offering the traditional Krillian greeting gesture. "Station Omega-7 welcomes you. How may we serve the Crimson Throne?" Empress Thyralia's primary throat sac inflated, and when she spoke, her voice resonated through multiple vocal chambers in a harmony that made the station's walls vibrate. "My sons are missing, human. 3 princes of the royal bloodline vanished from your station 12 hours ago during what you promised would be a safe cultural exchange." Maya felt her stomach drop. She remembered the 3 young Krillian princes who had arrived 2 days earlier as part of an educational program. Prince Zarian, the eldest at barely 6 Earth years, had been fascinated by human technology. Prince Kale had shown incredible curiosity about the station's hydroponics bays. Little Prince Zephyr, only 4, had followed his brothers everywhere with wide golden eyes full of wonder. "Your Majesty," Commander Morrison stepped forward, his military bearing evident despite his diplomatic tone. "Our security teams have been searching for the past 8 hours. We've scanned every section of the station twice. There's no sign of forced entry, no indication of hostile activity." The Empress's secondary arms clenched into fists. "Humans lie as easily as they breathe. My children are trained warriors, heirs to an empire that spans 47 star systems. They would not simply vanish without trace or reason." General Vex, the Empress's military commander, moved closer to his ruler. His scarred exoskeleton told stories of countless battles, and his single functional eye burned with suspicion. "Perhaps, Your Majesty, the humans have taken them as leverage. It would not be the first time a peaceful species has revealed its true nature." Maya couldn't stay silent any longer. "That's not true," she said, stepping forward despite Torres's warning look. "Humans don't harm children. It goes against everything we believe in." The Empress turned her full attention to Maya, and for a moment the scientist felt like a small creature caught in the gaze of an ancient predator. "And you are?" "Dr. Maya Chen, xenobiologist and cultural liaison. I've been working with your sons since they arrived. They're curious, intelligent children who were excited to learn about human culture." "Were," the Empress repeated, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You speak of them in past tense." "I meant no disrespect, Your Majesty. I believe they're still alive and safe somewhere on the station. Children sometimes hide when they're scared or overwhelmed." General Vex hissed through his respirators. "Krillian royalty does not hide. They do not show fear. They are bred for conquest and command." Maya looked directly at the Empress, remembering her interactions with the 3 princes. "With respect, Your Majesty, they weren't acting like conquerors when they were here. They were acting like children. Zarion kept asking questions about earth animals. Kale wanted to know how plants could grow without soil. And little Zephyr? She paused, remembering the youngest prince's shy smile. Zephyr asked me why humans hug each other when they're sad. For the first time since her arrival, the Empress's aggressive posture shifted slightly. Zephyr asked about human emotional displays. He did. He said Krillian warriors don't show affection physically, but he had seen human families embracing and wondered what it felt like. Commander Morrison activated his communicator. All search teams, report status. The responses came back negative, one by one. Engineering section, clear. Medical bay, clear. Recreation areas, clear. Storage compartments, clear. The three princes had seemingly vanished into the station's ventilation system. Maya's mind raced through the layout of the station. Where would three scared children go if they needed to hide? Somewhere warm, somewhere quiet, somewhere that reminded them of safety. Her quarters were in the residential section, far from the main areas where the search teams had been focusing. "Commander," she said suddenly, "have we checked the residential quarters in Section C?" "That's where most of our off-duty personnel live," Morrison replied. "Families with children. We didn't think—" "That's exactly where we should look," Maya interrupted. If the princes were scared or overwhelmed, they might have gone looking for somewhere that felt safe and familiar. The Empress studied Maya with all four of her eyes. "You think my sons would seek comfort among human families?" Maya nodded. "Children recognize other children regardless of species, and parents recognize children who need help." 20 minutes later, the search party moved through Section C's residential corridors. The area was quieter than the rest of the station, designed to provide a home-like atmosphere for families stationed in deep space. Soft lighting mimicked Earth's day-night cycle, and the walls were painted in warm colors instead of military gray. They were approaching Habitat 7C when Maya heard it, a soft sound that made her stop in her tracks. It was coming from behind the door marked Chen Rodriguez Family Unit. "Dr. Chen," Commander Morrison said quietly, "isn't this your family's quarters?" Maya nodded, her heart pounding. She had left her husband Carlos and their 8-year-old daughter Luna at home when the emergency began. Carlos was a linguist who specialized in alien communication patterns. Luna was homeschooled and rarely interacted with the station's other children. The sound came again. It was a low, rhythmic humming that Maya's trained ear recognized as a Krillian comfort vocalization. Adult Krillians rarely made such sounds, but children often hummed to self-soothe when they were stressed or frightened. Maya placed her palm on the door's biometric scanner. The lock disengaged with a soft click, and the door slid open silently. The living room was dimly lit, with only the soft glow of the reading lamps creating pools of warm light. Carlos sat in his favorite armchair, his dark eyes focused on a data pad, displaying Krillian linguistic patterns. But it wasn't Carlos that made the search party freeze in amazement. Curled up on the couch in a nest of blankets were all three missing princes. Prince Zarion, his crimson scales dulled with exhaustion, had his arms wrapped around Luna, who was fast asleep against his chest. Prince Kale was stretched across the back of the couch like a cat, his smaller frame rising and falling with peaceful breathing. Little Prince Zephyr was curled in a tight ball on the couch's arm, his golden eyes closed and his tiny claws retracted in complete relaxation. Luna had somehow arranged herself so that all three alien children could touch her, as if she instinctively understood their need for physical comfort. Her small hands rested on Zarion's arm and Kale's tail, while Zephyr's head was pillowed on her shoulder. Carlos looked up as the group entered, raising one finger to his lips in a universal gesture for quiet. "They've been like this for about 6 hours," he whispered. "They were scared and hungry when they showed up at our door." Luna immediately took charge, sharing her toys and making them comfortable. Empress Theralia stood frozen in the doorway, her massive form trembling. Her 4 eyes were fixed on her sons, and for the first time since Maya had known of the Krillian species, she saw an adult member showing pure, unguarded emotion. "How?" the Empress breathed. Carlos stood slowly, Careful not to disturb the sleeping children. They found us, Your Majesty. They were hiding in the ventilation system above our habitat. Luna heard them crying and convinced them to come down. She said they looked lonely. General Vex stepped forward, his single eye scanning the scene with military precision. This is impossible. Krillian warriors do not cry. They do not seek comfort from alien species. Carlos looked at the general with gentle firmness. With respect, sir, they're not warriors right now. They're children who got scared and lost in a strange place. And children, no matter what species they are, need to know they're safe. Maya watched as Prince Zephyr stirred, his golden eyes opening slowly. When he saw the crowd of adults in the doorway, he didn't jump to attention as royal protocol would demand. Instead, he looked at Luna's sleeping face and very carefully adjusted his position so he wouldn't wake her. "Mama?" he whispered in perfect standard, his voice still thick with sleep. The human child showed us pictures of Earth families. They embrace when they feel scared. It works. The unlikely bond. The silence in the room stretched like a held breath. Empress Thyralia stared at her youngest son, who had just admitted to seeking physical comfort from an alien child. In Krillian culture, such behavior would be seen as weakness, a failure of the martial conditioning that began at birth. Yet here was Prince Zephyr, heir to the Crimson Throne, speaking of fear as if it were a natural thing. Maya watched the Empress's face cycle through a dozen emotions: confusion, anger, disbelief, and something that looked almost like wonder. Behind her, General Vex's scarred features showed only disgust. "Your Majesty," the general hissed, "we must remove the princes immediately. They have been contaminated by human weakness. The royal physicians can reverse whatever psychological damage has been done." Prince Zarian's eyes snapped open at the harsh tone. His protective instincts, even at 6 years old, were already well developed. He shifted slightly, placing himself between his sleeping brothers and the armored soldiers. "General Vex," he said with surprising dignity for a child, "please lower your voice. Luna is still sleeping." The general's single eye widened in shock. A Krillian prince showing concern for an alien child's comfort. It went against everything he had been taught about proper royal behavior. Carlos stood slowly, his linguist's mind processing the complex family dynamics playing out before him. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "perhaps we could speak in the kitchen while the children rest. I think there are things you need to understand about what happened here." Luna stirred at the sound of voices, her brown eyes opening sleepily. When she saw the massive alien empress towering in the doorway, she should have been terrified. Instead, she smiled and gently patted Prince Kale's scaled arm. "Oh, good," she said in the matter-of-fact way of 8-year-olds. "You must be their mom. They were really worried about you. Zarian kept saying you would think they were weak for being scared, but I told him all moms worry when their kids are lost." Empress Thoralia's throat sacs inflated with surprise. In her 47 years of life, no one had ever referred to her simply as their mom. She was the Crimson Empress, conqueror of the Outer Spiral, commander of 1,000 fleets. But this small human child saw her only as a mother looking for her sons. "You told him this?" the Empress asked, her voice unconsciously gentler. Luna nodded seriously. "My mama always says that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what you need to do even when you are scared." The princes were very brave. They protected each other when they got lost. Prince Kale stretched like a cat and yawned, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. "Luna is right, Mother. When we fell through the ceiling panel, I wanted to use my claws on the humans who found us. But Zarian said we should wait and watch first, and Zephyr was so small and frightened." He looked at his youngest brother with genuine affection. Luna made him laugh by showing him her stuffed animals. I have never heard Zephyr laugh before. The Empress felt something crack inside her chest, a wall she had built around her heart to become the leader her people needed. In Krillian society, emotions were seen as weaknesses to be eliminated through training and discipline. Royal children were raised by military instructors, not parents. Physical affection was forbidden, as it might make them soft. She had followed these traditions because they had made the Krillian Empire strong, but looking at her sons, She saw something she had never noticed before. They looked genuinely happy. Their scales had lost the perpetual tension she was used to seeing. Their breathing was deep and relaxed. For the first time in their lives, they looked like children instead of small soldiers. "Luna," Maya said softly, "why don't you show the princes your art project while we talk in the kitchen?" The little girl nodded and carefully extracted herself from the tangle of alien limbs. She led the three princes to a corner where her drawing supplies were scattered across a low table. Within moments, she was explaining human color theory, while the princes experimented with crayons, their natural artistic instincts emerging for the first time. In the kitchen, Empress Thyralia seemed even more massive in the domestic space. She had to duck to avoid hitting her crest on the ceiling fixtures, and her four arms had nowhere to rest comfortably. Carlos offered her water, which she declined with a distracted gesture. "Your Majesty," Maya began, "I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about what happened. Your sons weren't taken or harmed. They were exploring the station and got lost. When they became frightened, they followed their natural instincts to seek safety and comfort." "Natural instincts," the Empress repeated slowly. "Krillian military. Doctrine teaches that fear is a weakness to be overcome through discipline and training." Carlos pulled up a holographic display showing brain scans and neural activity patterns. "I've been studying comparative psychology between our species. What we've discovered is that young Krillians and young humans have remarkably similar emotional processing systems. The need for comfort, security, and affection is universal among intelligent species." General Vex, who had followed them into the kitchen, made a sound of disgust. "Humans seek to weaken our children with their soft philosophies. This emotional contamination threatens the strength of the Empire." "Does it?" Maya challenged. "Or does it make them stronger in ways you haven't considered?" She activated her tablet and showed them recordings from the past few days of the prince's visit. "Look at their problem-solving abilities when they felt safe and encouraged. Zerion designed a more efficient water recycling system for our hydroponics bay. Kyle translated 17 previously unknown Krillian mathematical concepts into human terms. Zephyr created a new communication protocol that bridges the gap between our languages." The Empress watched the recordings with growing amazement. Her sons displayed creativity, innovation, and intellectual curiosity that far exceeded anything they had shown in their formal military education. "They accomplished this in 2 days?" she asked. "When children feel secure and valued, their natural abilities flourish," Carlos explained. "Fear and rigid discipline can actually inhibit learning and creativity. Your sons are brilliant, Your Majesty, but they needed the freedom to explore their potential." From the living room came the sound of laughter. Luna was teaching the princes a human clapping game, and their attempts to coordinate their forearms with the rhythm was creating hilarious results. Prince Zephyr's giggling was infectious, and soon all 4 children were collapsed in a pile of giggles. The Empress moved to the kitchen doorway and watched her sons with wonder. Zerion was carefully helping Zephyr with a difficult part of the game, his patience and gentleness evident. Kale was making encouraging sounds when Luna struggled with a particularly complex pattern. These were not the cold, disciplined warriors she had been training them to become. These were children learning the joy of friendship and play. "In Krillian culture," she said quietly, "we believe that emotion makes warriors vulnerable, that caring for others creates weakness that enemies can exploit." Maya joined her at the doorway. "But what if the opposite is true? What if caring for others gives you something worth fighting for? Something worth protecting?" The Empress was quiet for a long moment, watching as Luna carefully showed Prince Zephyr how to draw a flower. The little prince's golden eyes were bright with concentration and joy. "My own childhood was spent in military academies," the Empress said finally. "I was taught that strength came from isolation, from needing no one. I conquered 47 star systems, but I never experienced what my sons are experiencing right now." General Vex stepped forward. "Your Majesty, surely you don't mean to abandon thousands of years of Krillian tradition based on the behavior of alien children?" The Empress turned to face her military commander, and for the first time, he saw not just the fierce ruler he served, but a mother discovering what she had been missing. "General," she said with quiet authority. Look at my sons. Really look at them. When have you ever seen them so engaged, so creative, so genuinely happy? Our traditions have made us strong, but they have also made us isolated. We have conquered star systems, but we have never learned to make friends. She walked back into the living room, and this time she knelt down to the children's level. Luna looked up at her with curious eyes. Your Majesty, Luna said politely, would you like to draw with us? The princes are really good at it. Zerion drew a picture of their homeworld, and it's beautiful. The Empress looked at the offered crayon, a simple yellow stick of wax that represented something revolutionary. No Krillian ruler had ever engaged in recreational activities with children. It was beneath their dignity, irrelevant to military training, a waste of time that could be spent on combat conditioning. She took the crayon. For the next hour, the most powerful being in the Krillian Empire sat on the floor of a human habitat, learning to draw flowers while her sons taught her the clapping game they had learned from Luna. When Commander Morrison came to check on them, he found the Empress laughing, actually laughing, as Prince Zephyr tried to coordinate all four of his arms in the complex rhythm. Your Majesty, Torres said carefully, the diplomatic protocols for your departure are prepared whenever you're ready. The Empress looked at her sons, who had gone quiet at the mention of leaving. Prince Zerion was holding one of Luna's drawings, and Prince Kale had wrapped his tail around her arm in the Krillian gesture of deep friendship. Little Prince Zephyr had crawled into Luna's lap and was making the soft humming sounds of contentment. What if, the Empress said slowly, we weren't ready to leave just yet? General Vex started to object, but she silenced him with a gesture. What if my sons continued their cultural exchange? What if they learned more about human friendship, creativity, and cooperation? What if the Krillian Empire could become stronger, not through conquest alone, but through understanding? Maya felt her heart racing with the implications. Your Majesty, are you proposing a formal cultural alliance between our species? The Empress looked at her youngest son, who had fallen asleep in Luna's arms, his face peaceful and unguarded in a way she had never seen before. I am proposing, she said, that we learn from each other. That my sons continue their education here not just in human technology and culture, but in the strength that comes from caring for others. And perhaps in return, we can share our knowledge and resources to help humanity reach the stars. Luna looked up with bright eyes. Does that mean the princes can stay longer? Zerion promised to teach me how to read Krillian's star charts, and Kale wants to help my dad with his translation. Work, the Empress smiled, and the expression transformed her fierce features into something warm and maternal. It means, little Luna, that you have taught an Empress something far more valuable than military strategy. You have taught me that true strength comes not from standing alone, but from the bonds we form with others. As the station's emergency lights dimmed to evening cycle, the most unlikely friendship in the galaxy continued to grow. In a simple human habitat, 3 alien princes learned that vulnerability could be strength. A human child discovered that friendship transcends species boundaries, and an Empress began to understand that the greatest conquests are not of territory, but of hearts and minds. The future of human-Krillian relations had been changed forever, not by diplomatic treaties or military alliances, but by a simple truth that children understand instinctively. Everyone needs someone to care about them, and everyone deserves to feel safe and loved. The stars outside Station Omega-7 continued their eternal dance, but now they shone on a universe where 2 species had taken their first steps toward understanding that the greatest adventures come, not from conquest but from connection.